Cassandra by Taylor Swift. Today I'm looking at the track Cassandra from Taylor Swift's Tortured Poets Department anthology album. This is another of her songs which is heavily indebted to literature and mythology. And I'm going to begin by giving you a little background. You may already know all of this, but for those of you who don't, I think it's useful to fill in the background to give the context for the imagery that she's using in this song. She's drawing on the image of Cassandra from ancient Greek mythology. Now, Cassandra was the daughter of Priam and Hecuba, the king and queen of Troy at the time of the Trojan War. She was very beautiful, and Apollo took a fancy to her. Now, in order to win her affections, he gave her the gift of prophecy. There are several versions of the story. In one version of the story, she promised her favours in return for this gift. In another version, the gift was used as an enticement by Apollo to win her affection. Either way, she rejected Apollo's advances. Because he wasn't able to rescind the gift once it was given, he cursed her so that although her prophecies would always be accurate, she would never be believed. According to a different tradition, she acquired the gift of prophecy when she and her brother were left overnight in the temple of Apollo when she was a child. Serpents entwined them and licked their ears, bestowing on them the gift of prophecy. Now, according to this version of the story, it was only much later that Apollo fell in love with her, and he cursed her when she rejected his advances. Both of these stories are important for understanding the fundamental imagery or framework of this song. The overarching idea is that of a prophet whose prophecies are accurate but not believed. Cassandra foresaw the Trojan War and even that the Greeks would enter the city in the wooden horse, but no one believed her, with tragic results. She was regarded as a mad woman, and her father, Priam, locked her away in her chamber and kept her guarded. In this song, Taylor is clearly identifying herself with Cassandra, most likely with respect to the whole Kim Kanye episode, but probably other things in her life as well, and I'll take a look at that as we go through the song. And of course, the metaphor can easily be extended to other situations, both in Taylor's own life and in the lives of others too. How often, for instance, are women not believed? So, with that background in mind, let's listen to Cassandra by Taylor Swift.
I was in my new house placing daydreams, patching up the crack along the wall. I pass it and lose track of what I'm saying, 'cause that's where I was when I got the call.
This is another song in which Taylor just jumps straight in with the lyrics. There's no introduction, no musical introduction to this, just bang, starts the story. I was in my new house placing daydreams. Of course, she could be reflecting upon an actual occasion when she was in a new home. But regardless of that, I think she's also using this as a metaphor. She often uses places and concepts like home to refer to people and relationships. And here I think the new house that she's talking about is a new life that she's starting for herself. And I think this is meant to be somewhat later than the events that she refers to in the song. This is a period later in her life when she's moved on, establishing a new home, establishing a new life, but reflecting back on earlier times, on earlier events. And as she's going through the home, which is kind of her memories, if you like, she reaches this moment in time, this crack in the wall. And that's when she loses track of what she's saying. It kind of catches her attention. It brings it all back to mind again, because that's where I was when I got the call. That's where I was in my life, looking back over my life now as I build this new home, creating new dreams for myself, new daydreams. As I'm doing that, I come across this crack in the wall, because that's where I was when I got the call, she says. The call almost certainly refers to the call from Kanye West, where he wants to discuss a song with her that he's written, that whole episode. And the call later, of course, becomes notorious because Kim Kardashian released an edited version of that call, which seemed to indicate that Taylor had been lying about the call. And it only becomes clear later, of course, when the full recording is released, that Taylor was telling the truth the whole time. So that's really important to understand that, I think, if you don't already. So she's looking back over her life as she begins to establish this new life with new relationships and so on. Perhaps, in fact, as she's creating this album, The Tortured Poets Department, she's looking back and she stops at this point in her life where she sees this crack.
I was in my new house placing daydreams, patching up the crack along the wall. I pass it and lose track of what I'm saying, 'cause that's where I was when I got the call. When the first stone's thrown, they're screaming. In the streets there's a raging riot. When it's burn the bitch, they're shrieking. When the truth comes out, it's quiet.
Although, of course, Taylor is thinking about her specific situation here, I think this can be generalized, this idea. When the first stone's thrown, they're screaming. When an accusation is made against someone, particularly a celebrity, it makes the headlines. Everybody weighs in on it. Everybody has an opinion. There's screaming. In the streets there's a raging riot. When it's burn the bitch, they're shrieking. Burn the bitch, burn the witch. These are ideas that recur in Taylor's songwriting. She identifies herself with this witch, or bitch in this case, that's being burnt at the stake for something, in fact, that they never did. But when the initial accusation is made, everybody hears it, it makes headlines. But when the truth comes out, it's quiet. And so often that's true as well. Later on, when the person is cleared of that accusation, when it turns out that that wasn't actually what happened, that's buried on page 9 of the newspapers. It doesn't make the headlines. People don't scream about that. It's quietly buried. And that, I think, is the experience that Taylor is describing here, which of course applies to her own situation, but can apply to so many other people's situations as well.
When the first stone's thrown, they're screaming. In the streets there's a raging riot. When it's burn the bitch, they're shrieking. When the truth comes out, it's quiet. So they killed Cassandra first, 'cause she feared the worst and tried to tell the town. So they filled my cell with snakes, I regret to say. Do you believe me now?
So they killed Cassandra first, and this is where she makes this identification between herself and the prophetess Cassandra. Of course, they didn't immediately kill Cassandra for the prophecies that she made, but what they did was that they locked her up. They regarded her as a mad woman. And we've seen this idea of a mad woman too in Taylor's songs quite often. This idea that when a woman stands up for her rights, when a woman becomes angry, she's regarded as mad, as insane. So here the accusations fly against Taylor. They don't literally kill her, but they seek to bring her down. They seek to kill her reputation. They don't want to hear what she has to say. She tried to tell the town, she tried to warn them, and they didn't listen. But do you believe me now, she says. She also in this verse refers to snakes. So they filled my cell with snakes, I regret to say. Now, snakes have become associated with the Reputation album, with the Reputation tour and all that took place between her and Kim and Kanye. But clearly this is also seen as a link with the story of Cassandra, that alternative story where it's through the snakes that she acquires this gift of prophecy. So by calling her a snake, what this did is actually trigger something in Taylor. It in fact gave her a new strength, a new insight, a new power, which she expressed through the Reputation album and the Reputation tour. So she can trace back in a way her subsequent gift of prophecy to this filling of her cell with snakes, just as in the case of Cassandra, that alternative story.
So they killed Cassandra first, 'cause she feared the worst and tried to tell the town. So they filled my cell with snakes, I regret to say. Do you believe me now? I was in my tower weaving nightmares, twisting all my smiles into snarls. They say what doesn't kill you makes you aware. What happens if it becomes who you are?
I was in my tower weaving nightmares. I think this refers back to the Cassandra story. Cassandra wasn't locked in a tower, but she was locked in her room. And weaving nightmares, I think, is an echo back to the opening line, where she's in her new home creating daydreams. But back then she was in her tower weaving nightmares. Weaving is a concept that goes through Greek mythology as well. There's a number of stories that involve weaving. But here she's weaving nightmares, twisting all her smiles into snarls. So this experience is changing her. It's changing the threads of her life, twisting all her smiles into snarls. I think she found within herself at this point a certain, maybe a darkness, a bitterness that took the joy out of her life and brought darkness into her life. These are nightmares, not daydreams. Then she puts a twist on the common saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, which I've always thought was a stupid saying anyway. But what she says is, what doesn't kill you makes you aware. So it brings knowledge to her. It doesn't destroy her, though it comes close, and she at times thinks that it has. But what it does do is make her aware. It gives her a new knowledge, just as in a way the snakes did. Gave her a new awareness of life, a new awareness of the world around her, of what the world is really like. Then she adds this line, what happens if it becomes who you are? Again, in the album Reputation and in the Reputation tour, she's actually embracing the negative things that have been said about her over her lifetime up to that point. She's owning them. She's becoming who they claimed that she was. But she's actually doing this theatrically. She's doing this as a performance, showing the world what she would be if she was this person. But she does hold within herself this fear that she might actually be this person or be becoming this person. It's a fear that she has.
I was in my tower weaving nightmares, twisting all my smiles into snarls. They say what doesn't kill you makes you aware. What happens if it becomes who you are? So they killed Cassandra first, 'cause she feared the worst and tried to tell the town. So they set my life in flames, I regret to say. Do you believe me now?
Back to the chorus here. And I just want to note that she says, not just so they killed Cassandra, but so they killed Cassandra first. So there's a warning here in this chorus. If they come for me, they're going to come for you next. They killed me first, but you're next. She tried to tell the town, so they set my life in flames. It's just another way of describing how they sought to bring her down.
So they killed Cassandra first, 'cause she feared the worst and tried to tell the town. So they set my life in flames, I regret to say. Do you believe me now? They knew the whole time that I was onto something. all said nothing. Blood's thick, but nothing like a payroll. That they never spared a prayer for my soul. You can mark my words that I said it first. In a morning warning, no one heard.
Here she makes the point that they knew, that is, Kim and Kanye certainly knew, but maybe the they includes more people too. They being Kanye's and Kim's friends, for example, maybe even some in the media. They knew. The they is left a little vague, but the implication is that there were people out there who knew the truth, and they knew that she was onto something. As far as Kanye is concerned, I mean, I think we've all seen what he's become. It's kind of inexplicable. I don't understand what's going on in that man's mind and in his life. But Taylor is claiming that she gave an early warning that there were problems here, that there was something wrong here. And some people knew that all along. Then she refers to the family, which I assume is the Kardashian family. The pure greed, the Christian chorus line. They claim to be Christians. Kanye has repeatedly recorded about God and Jesus and certainly claims to be a Christian and a Nazi. Go figure. But they all said nothing. Blood's thick, yes. The family stuck together, but nothing like a payroll. There was money in this too. And maybe money is a stronger bond than even blood. And then she points out the hypocrisy of all this. They never spared a prayer for my soul. And then she reiterates, you can mark my words that I said it first. I warned you. Then this interesting line, in a morning warning, no one heard. Now, when you listen to that song, you don't know whether she's referring to morning as in the time of day or mourning as in a time of grief. Now, the official lyric video shows you that it's mourning as in a time of grief, but if you just listen to that song, you don't know that. So I assume there's some deliberate ambiguity here. And I think morning warning is reiterating the idea that she got in early. She gave an early warning. But morning warning is an indication that she's giving this warning out of her grief, out of her pain. So I think it carries both of those meanings here, but still, no one heard, no one listened.
They knew the whole time that I was onto something. The family, the pure greed, the Christian chorus line. They all said nothing. Blood's thick, but nothing like a payroll. That they never spared a prayer for my soul. You can mark my words that I said it first. In a morning warning, no one heard. I patched up the crack along the wall. I pass it and lose track of what I'm saying. 'Cause that's where I was when I lost it all.
Now we return to the crack in the wall, and she's repairing the damage, or seeking to repair the damage. The damage to her life, the damage to her reputation, the damage to her memories. She's going back in memory and patching up that crack. Again, she loses track of what she's saying. This time, though, it's because that's where I was when I lost it all. Now, I do think the main focus of this song is probably on the Kanye Kim episode, but I think there are also echoes here of the whole situation with Scooter Braun. I think a similar thing was taking place here, that she tried to warn people about Scooter Braun, and other people caught up later and saw what was going on. So again, in this situation, she sees herself as the prophetess, Cassandra, warning people. And I say that because she says, that's where I was when I lost it all. And I think she's possibly referring not just to her reputation here, but to the loss of her master recordings at the time, their sale to Scooter Braun. That was kind of the other big episode in her life, where the time in her life when she felt that she was warning people and they weren't listening, but the truth came out later.
I patched up the crack along the wall. I pass it and lose track of what I'm saying, 'cause that's where I was when I lost it all. So they killed Cassandra first, 'cause she feared the worst and tried to tell the town. So they filled my cell with snakes, I regret to say. Do you believe me now? I was on to something. They all said nothing. Blood's thick, but nothing like a payroll. Bet they never spared a prayer for my soul. You can mark my words that I said it first. In a morning warning, no one heard. No one heard. Not a single word was heard. When the first stone's thrown, they're screaming. In the streets there's a raging riot. When it's burn the bitch, they're shrieking. When the truth comes out, it's quiet. It's so quiet.
So there it is, Cassandra by Taylor Swift. Clearly, the making of this album, The Tortured Poets Department, forced Taylor to look back over her life again and relive a whole lot of experiences. We see that referenced, I think, in the manuscript, for example. The album's not just about her immediate situation, the end of recent relationships and so on, although obviously there's a fair bit of that there in the album. But in the course of that, she finds herself reflecting over most of her life as she begins to reconstruct her life and rebuild her life. Particularly the Kanye Kim episode and maybe the Scooter Braun episode all come to mind again, which she reflects on here. So here she sees herself as not being listened to, not being heard, having the truth, telling the truth, and not being heard, much as Cassandra was in the myth. But as much as this applies to her personally, I think it clearly applies in a lot of other situations too, where particularly victims are not heard and not listened to. And certainly, more often than not, it's the woman who's not being listened to in these situations. So I think that's the deeper meaning behind the song, that it doesn't just relate to her particular personal circumstances. That's how I see it anyway. What do you think as you listen to that song? I guess there's not going to be much debate about what the song is referring to in terms of Taylor's own life, but what do you think of her use of the imagery here, of that general idea of telling the truth but not being listened to? As always, I'd really love to hear your comments.